The time is 0307 hours. The place, the Iraqi North Plain at the Al-Bazir choke point. This is the situation. In the early morning hours of July 24, 2008, the Marine Scouts of Company A, 4th LAR, have been pulled from their reserve status near Tikrit, not to rejoin the ongoing multilateral police action in neighboring Syria, but to serve as stopgap reconnaissance relative to a new and unexpected threat from the east. For Captain Travis Ricks and the men of 2nd Platoon, this predicament has brought them toe-to-toe with lead elements of a split Iranian armored task force, a formation that intends to link up on the very ground that they now occupy. Having wrenched control of Al-Bazir from a band of insurgent operatives, the vital 1080 corridor west to Kirkuk is now under Marine control. However, a latent mortar barrage is hindering their efforts to fortify these holdings and merge with a new arrival to Objective Keystone, that being a heavy weapons platoon. To the east, after being repulsed by 25mm cannon fire, the remnants of an Iranian scout unit are holed up inside a pair of buildings that straddle the fringes of the North Desert Sands, otherwise known as Marine Reference Point M. Zuma. Within the medieval bastion on the adjoining ridge, reference point Kasbah, reside the two Iranian Spec Ops teams charged with overseeing this formerly clandestine flanking maneuver. To the south, the survivors of a second recon unit likewise ravaged by the Marine Coyotes have deployed to the Wadi Akaret, as well as to a secluded trading post, reference point EE. With the influx of U.S. reinforcements to this remote site, a new and potentially irreversible situation has been set in motion. No longer is Captain Rick's mission that of force detection. His new task is something more substantial and much more exigent. The thunderous roar produced by lumbering large-block diesel engines rolling in from the west announces the arrival of two U.S. troop transports. Concealed from view within the nearby wadi, the four light-duty assault trucks of the insurgent ops force have until now avoided direct confrontation. Taking action based on what they hear yet cannot see, the militants accurately conclude that a pair of non-combat carriers have stalled short of Al-Bazir due to the mortar barrage, which places the unsuspecting transports broadside to and within meters of their hidden positions. Assuming their targets to be soft in nature, the militants ready their open-mount machine guns and move out. Their intent is to ambush what they perceive to be defenseless troops huddled aboard vulnerable vehicles. While the westernmost pair of pickups exit the wadi to harass and therein distract their prey, the other two vehicles back up to the crest of the dry wash in order to gain the enviable advantage of both defilade and enfilade firing position. Unfortunately for the insurgents, their targets are neither soft nor are they defenseless. Unlike their attackers, the Marines have come to the field in armored carriers, specifically designed for hostile environments. Not only are these MTVRs relatively immune to small arms fire, each transport also sports the iconic Browning heavy machine gun in a cab pulpit configuration. In addition, the gunners are equipped with night vision goggles like those worn by every other Marine, an asset that pays instant dividends. Well before the aggressors can gain definitive visual contact, the transports detect their activity and recognize their motive, thus spoiling their improvised stratagem. Realizing that they have bit off more than they can chew, the militants attempt to cut their losses and retreat. Exposed on the open plain, the two mobile assault trucks circle back towards the dry wash. Miraculously, the lead vehicle manages to regain the depression. However, their cohort is cut off from pursuit. Peppered with large caliber bullets, the vehicle is mechanically hobbled and in threat of being torn to pieces. Reversing course, the radicals seek momentary safety behind their own dust cloud, fortunate not to have fallen victim to their quarry. As for the MTVRs, potential disaster has been averted. Acting prudently, they withdraw away from the wadi to a more defensible position for proper troop debarkation. Back in Al-Bazir, the mortar bombardment is proving to be more hazardous and inhibiting than what might ordinarily be expected of a single tube. With the loss of their occupation force, the precautionary measure of registering the village for a possible artillery strike now serves the insurgents well, much to Captain Rick's dismay.
I was absolutely convinced that someone very nearby was directing the incoming mortar fire. A cursory assault from a lone artillery source simply could not have had any effect of pinning down our every movement. Since my scout teams were still fully engaged in sweeping the south sector for the last of the hostiles, my only recourse was to enlist the aid of Coyote 3. Not only was this crew disenfranchised from their vehicle, and without task, they were the only team within range of the isolated north building, which required prompt investigation. Regrettably, a mortar shell impacted in close proximity to them, prior to reaching their destination, thus causing 2 casualties. As fate would have it, a subsequent shell detonated next to Delta Team while they were stalking the final dwelling that housed known combatants. This unfortunate event produced the 2nd casualty of the action as well. At this point, my patience was spent. I could not allow such a frivolous attack to continue, unabated. There was no choice other than to risk investing the suspect building, personally. I reported this decision to the platoon, which quickly intervened on my behalf. Charlie Team volunteered for the risky task and set out across the village. Using the buildings as intermediate cover, they managed to avoid the mortars, while Coyote 3 tended to their own wounded. I have to admit, when it came to crunch time, the dedication and bravery of the entire troop was simply outstanding.
For Aziz and his attaché staff, the minor solace provided by the insurgent mortar attack on Al-Bazir is muted by rapidly changing events in and around the village.
اصطياد موقع لنقل القوات الأمريكية إلى الشمال من القرية لما يشر إلا أن المعارضة.
Catching sight of the American troop transports north of the village not only indicated that the opposition was growing in strength, it also confirmed that the nation, with the most proficient night fighters in the world, had somehow usurped our southern blocking force in order to be on site to torment us with their technological prowess. It was also painfully obvious that we were on the verge of losing contact with our covert operative, who was staked out inside the village's predetermined safe house. These developments were not at all encouraging. Our oncoming tank force was strong, yet distinctly handicapped when it came to nocturnal combat. I recall the Anglo-colloquialism crossing my mind. Welcome to the Hurt Locker, baby.
Compounding the Iranians' consternation yet further, the odious thump of rotor blades fills their ears as a lethal U.S. attack helicopter makes its presence known directly over the battlefield. A member of the Marine 169th Light Attack Squadron, the Lone Cobra initiates a leisurely flyover of the hot zone whilst coordinating targets with the C-2.
Roger. Cleared hot.
In an effort to avoid the prospect of secondary assault from the Wadi, as well as to evade the danger presented by the unexploded IED, the heavy weapons platoon has relocated to the village's northwest exterior. While the No. 2 transport discharges its human cargo early in order to remain on station with its 50 cal, the other carrier skirts the barrier to a position just outside the north gate where it can follow suit. Much to the chagrin of the militant agent operating from within the safe house, his autonomous activities are about to be revoked. The approach of both Charlie team and the heavy weapons platoon evoke unequivocal panic in this illegitimate combatant. His transmissions to the off-site mortar crew are interrupted when a testy Marine suddenly peers through an open window. The Americans are now at the threshold. Bursting through the front door with rifles at the ready, Charlie team begins its search of the interior rooms. What they discover is a smattering of village residents who promptly point to the cowardly dissident and shout the word Wahhabi, Arabic for terrorist. The Marines promptly take the man into custody along with 2 radio devices, one for communication, the other an IED detonator. Elsewhere in the village, the half-treated Delta team concludes their sweep of the final hostile residents and report their findings. Albeit is now totally clear of the insurgent element, which includes a sudden reprieve from the mortar shower. The pair exit the building and immediately go to work aiding their fallen friend. Within the Wadi Trough, the Iranian splinter recon troop continues to pop in and out of cover as they pursue their trek towards Al-Bazir. Hounded by the coyotes, their transition is made easier with the help of suppressive fire from the only fully functional BMP still in action. Although these soldiers eventually vanish from the field of vision of even the Marine observation post, the BMP itself is still quite prominent within Captain Rick's sights. It maintains station in order to continue harassing Fox 2 in spite of a new and menacing adversary hovering dangerously close overhead. As if inviting the idle AT platform to engage it in combat, the IFV launches the second of its 4 Spigot missiles, which impacts the south wall. Albeit wasteful, this action succeeds in forcing Fox 2 to withdraw from the village compound altogether. Despite this minor setback, Captain Ricks is nevertheless heartened by other events.
We had no more than secured the objective and witnessed an end to the mortar barrage when my comset perked up with the query, "Did anyone here call for room service?" On the other end of the frequency was the company's heavy weapons lieutenant. His plucky demeanor was droll, yet apropos. He and his men were just outside the north entrance. What a welcome sight those guys were. I began to direct their deployment into the village interior, when another equally comforting voice then chimed in. It was the pilot of the Cobra chopper aloft the battlefield. He and his gunner were requesting clearance to engage the AO. My clever C2 staff had pre-designated them with the call sign, Mozartmann. Therefore, I simply responded with the phrase, "Rock me Amadeus." The ensuing fire from the sky was ample enough acknowledgement of my authorization. Reference point, Mzuma, was their initial target. Or, shall I say, the first victim of their punishing exploits.
Due to the unexpected circumstances, Marine aerial assets in Iraq are equipped with but the standard counterinsurgency loadout, meaning guns and unguided rockets only. Nevertheless, the Cobra proceeds to riddle the makeshift scout car parking lot with AP rounds from its rapid-firing chin-mounted Gatling gun. Within seconds, 2 of the 4 vehicles are reduced to little more than scrap metal. Able to discern this assault from well across the dark plain, the BMP scouts located within the trading post at reference point EE make the spontaneous decision to abandon their secluded outpost and return to their pre-assigned recon activity. They are motivated not so much by duty, but for fear of becoming wholesale victims of the aerial predator themselves. Though agonizingly slow, they begin a westerly crawl with the goal of reaching the Wadi Trench to the north. With the conclusion of Mozart I's brief attack on Mzuma, a general lull in hostilities sweeps the desert plain surrounding Al-Bazir. While the men of the heavy weapons platoon go about deploying their 2 heavy machine guns and 2 automatic grenade launchers to the village's south and east perimeter, Charlie team exits the safe house with their Iranian operative in tow. They promptly hand him off for safekeeping to the 2 survivors of Coyote 3, along with his confiscated gadgets. For the time being, the only belligerent activity within the battle zone originates from the towers of the Sultan's dagger. In pursuit of prey, the Iranian Special Forces snipers can't help but detect the movement occurring within the village's north compound. In an attempt to capitalize on this mass of targets, the Citadel marksman elects to track the exposed infantry. The Keep sniper, on the other hand, opts to hunt a more static target, that being the machine gunner of the number 1 MTVR parked outside the north gate. In both cases, however, the long-range projectiles fired by these gunmen are errant misses. Though unscathed by virtue of their light armor protection, the incident does solicit concern in the transport crew, which vacates its position by relocating to the northwest corner of the village, where they rejoin their companion carrier astride the wall exterior. A natural derivative of war, the paradigm of combat is always in a state of flux. The Battle of Albeit is no different. Veiled amongst the constituent platoon of reinforcements is a section of highly trained Marines, but not just any Marines. Bearing the unpretentious moniker of Scout Sniper, these men are members of an elite brigade, world-renowned for their deadly expertise with heavy barrel rifles at long range, particularly at night. With their appearance on the field of battle, the impartial hand of fate brushes away the inequity of force enjoyed by the Iranian marksman. A new scenario now unfolds. However, it portends to be far from the last.
كنت أشاهد حكايات مكافحة الظاهرية على صاحب قصة قناة الإنترنت.